The movie begins with a boy named Christopher Robbins encountering a group of unusual adolescent creatures while wandering the 100-acre woods forest. The beings identify themselves as half-human and go by the names Owl, Rabbit, Piglet, Eeyore, and Winnie-the-Pooh. Despite their intimidating looks, a young Christopher pays no attention to the potential risks and chooses to make friends with these creatures. He regularly brings them food, and they remain inseparable for numerous years, which deepens their connection. However, everything changes when Christopher faces the difficult choice of parting ways with the creatures in order to pursue his ambitions of becoming a doctor by attending college. As the creatures had grown reliant on Christopher for their very survival, they struggle to adapt to their new circumstances without him. Winter arrives, exacerbating their predicament with a severe shortage of food, causing the creatures to endure intense starvation. This desperation causes their feral instincts to return again, and in order to survive, they kill off and eat their dear friend, Eeyore. However, this traumatizes them to the point where they develop a deep hatred for humanity, especially Christopher. So they vow to get revenge on mankind and swear to stop using the human language that Christopher had taught them. The movie fast-forwards 5 years into the future, where an adult Christopher returns to the 100-acre woods with his new fiancée, Mary, to reunite with his old pals. He leads her into the woods and asks whether or not she believes the stories of his animal friends. She responds by giving Christopher a reassuring look and adds that his friends might just be a figment of his imagination, as he was a very young boy when he met them. He promises to prove his story, and shortly after, they come across the creature's place. However, the place is in a desolate state, causing Christopher to be in complete shock. Mary's instincts kick in, and she starts to worry, telling Christopher that they should leave. On the other hand, Christopher wants to investigate further, and so they head up inside an old treehouse which he and the animals used to live in. All of a sudden, they hear footsteps creeping up the stairs, prompting the two to hide, using the bed as cover. A mysterious figure walks inside the room and proceeds to sleep on the bed, causing Christopher and Mary to hide until the night creeps in. At nighttime, they notice the creature slumbering on the bed and take the opportunity to make a quick exit. However, their escape is thwarted when Piglet appears out of nowhere and wraps a metallic chain around Mary's neck. She proceeds to strangle Mary, and she is unfortunately killed, while Christopher watches in horror. Terrified, he runs into hiding, but is soon confronted by Pooh, who slowly walks towards Christopher. The latter tries to remind Pooh about their childhood days.
Why are you doing this? We used to be friends.
But to no avail. However, his hopes of being spared are dashed when Piglet appears on the opposite side, trapping Christopher between him and Pooh. Christopher is finally hit with the realization that his childhood friends have changed and he is captured alive. The movie cuts to a girl named Maria talking to her therapist, who advises her that she should take a break from the busy world and should go someplace serene. So she listens to her therapist's suggestions and rents a cabin in the 100-acre woods with her friends Jessica, Alice, Zoe, and Lara. Meanwhile, another one of her friends named Tina is late and informs Maria that she will arrive soon. The group eventually arrive at the cottage and are in awe. Once inside, Jessica instructs everyone to hand over their phones to fully disconnect with the outside world. In the meantime, Tina is seen in front of the sign for the 100-acre woods, calling Maria for directions as it appears that she is lost. However, none of her friends pick up, and so she ventures into the woods, hoping to reach them. When she dives deeper into the forest, Tina spots Winnie-the-Pooh in the distance, who immediately sprints towards her. This causes her to frantically run, and she ends up hiding inside of an abandoned garage. Pooh enters the garage but leaves shortly, much to Tina's relief. However, when she comes out of hiding, it's revealed that Pooh hadn't left at all. Pooh appears behind her and brutally attacks her, bashing her head against the wall multiple times before shoving her into a wood chipper, horrifically killing her. Meanwhile, back in the cabin, Maria opens up to her friends about how her traumatic experience with a stalker who had broken into her home and had attempted to sexually assault her. It's revealed that this encounter is the reason that she started seeing a therapist, and it is clear that it has permanently scarred her. The movie cuts back to Pooh's treehouse. where we see a battered Christopher who is tied up and is being held prisoner. Shortly after, Pooh enters the room and Christopher starts to beg for mercy,
Please, please.
reminding him that they were once best friends. Pooh remembers how Christopher had always promised to stay with him, which overwhelms him with rage. As a result, he lets his anger out by whipping Christopher repeatedly on his back, and even going so far as to placing Mary's skull in front of him. Pooh doesn't stop there and proceeds to shower Christopher with Mary's blood. As night falls, Pooh drags Mary's corpse out into the woods when he suddenly hears loud music coming from the direction of the cabin, so he heads to investigate. In the meantime, Laura covertly steals her phone and enters the hot tub outside the cabin. She takes several selfies, and when she goes through the photos, she notices a creepy figure standing behind a few feet away from the tub. Startled, Laura gets out and searches for the figure, but to no avail. Thinking that it is a foul prank played by her friends, she dismisses the matter and gets back inside the hot tub. However, soon after, Pooh and Piglet slowly approach Laura from behind before ambushing and knocking her unconscious. Later, when Laura opens her eyes, she finds herself face flat on the road with her legs and hands and mouth tied up together, with Piglet pinning her down and Pooh slowly revving the engine of a car. She tries to call for help, but unfortunately, no one is able to hear her muffled screams. Pooh then slowly drives the car onto Laura's head, crushing her skull and letting out a last-minute scream. The scream is heard by Maria and Jessica, who are somewhere outside the cabin. They rush to investigate the scream, only to find Laura's corpse and crushed head in front of the cabin. Terrified for their lives, the two retreat back inside the cabin and luckily find Zoe and Alice alive and well. They inform them of Laura's death, causing them to panic. The girls then find a message written with blood on the glass doors, further adding to their tension. All of a sudden, they hear a faint noise coming from outside the cabin, and they all see a terrifying figure, Pooh with a huge knife in hand. The power is also cut off, prompting Alice and Zoe to run into the kitchen to arm themselves. Meanwhile, Maria has flashbacks of her traumatic experience and assumes that the culprit is her stalker. However, Zoe and Alice return back and reassure her that it is not. Maria then recalls that she had brought a gun with her for protection, so she and Jessica run upstairs to go and retrieve it. This causes the four girls to split up, with Alice and Zoe entering the indoor pool to close the back door, which Laura had left open. The two are suddenly attacked by Piglet, who knocks Alice unconscious, but fails to land a hit on Zoe, who throws herself into the pool. Just as Piglet is about to finish Alice off, Zoe luckily diverts his attention over to her, so Piglet jumps inside the pool, swinging his sledgehammer to strike Zoe. The latter tries to escape Piglet's reach, but is struck on the head with the sledgehammer, killing her. Shortly after, Maria and Jessica find the gun and return back downstairs, only to witness Pooh and Piglet abduct Alice and carry her away. Not wanting to leave their best friend behind, they decide to follow them into the woods to rescue her. Not long after, Alice is seen tied up in the creature's lair. Once the coast is clear, Maria and Jessica quickly free Alice and proceed to escape the area when all of a sudden, they hear a loud yell coming from another room. So Maria convinces the others to investigate, as they should not leave anyone behind. The three enter the room and came across Christopher with his hands hanging from a hook. He begs for their help, so they free him before hearing yet another scream. This time, coming from a woman. Christopher assures them that he is fine and asks Maria and Jessica to go and help the other woman out, stating that he is okay. They search for the source of the noise and eventually find a woman with a disfigured face tied up. They quickly untie the woman and help her escape. However, when they come across a glass mirror, the woman sees her mutilated face and is filled with rage. She seeks revenge on Piglet, as he was the one who had attacked her. She snatches the gun from Maria's hand before heading back to the lair, calling out Piglet, while the girls hide and watch it all unfold. Piglet appears out of the shadows and the woman points her gun at him and fires. However, the gun doesn't work, and she is suddenly subdued by Pooh from behind. The latter lies her down on the floor and pours honey on her face, before Piglet violently mauls her to death. The girls watch in horror as Maria and Jessica decide to run away, causing Pooh to chase them. However, Alice stays behind after finding a bat and is able to knock Piglet out after catching him off guard. Pooh chases Maria and Jessica into the woods while Alice chains Piglet up and continues to bludgeon him with his own sledgehammer. She avenges Laura's death and ends up killing Piglet with one final blow to his head. Meanwhile, Pooh hears Piglet's screams and immediately heads back to his lair, abandoning the chase. He finds Piglet's dead body and ambushes Alice before impaling her with a knife through her mouth. Maria and Jessica eventually end up on the road where they encounter a car and 4 local countrymen. The two disclose everything that they know and beg for help, but the men don't believe a word they say and assume that the girls are on drugs or are delusional. Moments later, Pooh shows up, proving the girls right. The men finally believe the girls and decide to take Pooh down. The men gear up and approach Pooh while Maria and Jessica take cover in the car. They try to warn the men to not go near Pooh, but they don't listen to them and proceed to beat him up. However, they do little to no damage, and a furious Pooh uses his brute strength to kill them off, severing their limbs. Pooh then immediately starts to advance towards the car, making Maria ram into Pooh, running him over. But they soon find out that he has held on to the running car and mounts himself on top of it. Maria tries to shake him off, but to no avail, prompting her to hit the brakes. This sends Pooh flying ahead but knocks the girls unconscious. Upon awakening shortly after, Maria witnesses Pooh drag Jessica out of the car. Moments later, he shows Maria Jessica's decapitated head, causing Maria to go into a frenzy. Afterwards, Pooh drags her outside too and pins her head against the car. He attempts to kill her with a knife until Christopher comes to the rescue and rams his car against Pooh, crushing him between the 2 vehicles. Christopher tries to help Maria back on her feet, but Pooh, having barely survived, frees himself from the cars and slowly approaches the 2. He manages to get a hold of Maria and holds her at knife point. Christopher pleads with Pooh and requests to let Maria go, promising to spend the rest of his life in the 100-acre wood with him. Pooh initially considers his offer, but remembers that Christopher had abandoned him. He breaks his vow of silence and utters, "You left," to Christopher before slicing Maria's throat. Christopher is once again traumatized after witnessing Maria die in his hands and realizing that his childhood friend cannot be helped. The movie ends with Christopher running into the woods while Pooh repeatedly stabs Maria's dead corpse.